put a little bit of a countdown, and this is what usually comes up on screen. And at this point, I would also have this on screen as well, which is our Patreon supporters. Thank you very much indeed to all of you who are keeping us going here at An Englishman in San Diego. Really much appreciated, because as a mobile DJ, with all the pubs and clubs and venues closed at the moment, guess who ain't working a single penny at the moment? That will be me. So yes, thank you very much indeed to everyone who has donated to the Patreon. Really appreciate it. We are not going to do the full 3-minute countdown. I do just want to say, however, if you have gotten a notification that we have gone live, that's because you are a subscriber, and you also have your notifications turned on. Thank you so much indeed for that. I know that these Wednesday shows are a little bit off and a little bit weird for one or two people still at this point, because we usually were just the Sunday. We've gone to twice weekly just as a kind of, let's stay together as a con community, as we have no shows going on at the moment, and it's just a case of a big group hug. So let's do something on a Wednesday. That's pretty much what we're up to. As always, if you do want to jump in on the chat, do that. I am going to very quickly take this time, however, to go to my personal Facebook, because we are going to be sharing this now. Make that a public one, which means if you want to comment on the Facebook video, and of course if you want to share it, you can do. It's now public. You can do that and send that out left, right and center. What else have we got to say? Oh, we got Into the Blue Mister already saying afternoon from sunny Wales. Hello there, welcome to you, sir. Any comments, any questions, jump in, because we've got ourselves a cracking show lined up, and I think you're going to have a bit of a blast with us today. So there. Right, like I say, I'm not going to do the full full 3 minutes, because we're 2 minutes past now, 2 minutes past the hour. The reason why I'm running a little bit late is because I've just taken a cup of tea into the other room, as well as brewing my own. I have just got a cup of tea for my dad. I posted something on my personal Facebook, more of a rant towards those protesters that are saying that we need to get back to work, we need to get out of the house, we need to do this, that, and the other. Let's meet up for barbecues and whatever. Don't ever disrespect this virus. The key thing about it is its transmittability. It's so easy to catch it. That's the defining thing about it. And yes, my father has contracted corona. He was showing very slight symptoms. He was slight breath, irregular heartbeat, which can be caused by infection. So he has spent the last couple of days in hospital being checked out. He's now back home. We're all in complete isolation because he's being tested positive. It's assumed that myself and Caroline are as well. So we're in complete lockdown. Don't disrespect this thing. Wash your hands, stay home, stay safe. It's as simple as that. Welcome along to, oh yeah, don't drop my tea on my electronics, indeed. Yeah, well, I'll have to post about that on something else. That was not fun, but there we go. Welcome along to Talkin Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. My name's Leonard Sulana. Each and every show we talk about Comic-Cons, con culture, and all the stuff and nonsense that we get to enjoy at those particular events. We are doing these shows twice weekly to celebrate those events. Obviously, it's very disappointing that the news is that San Diego Comic-Con has cancelled for this year, pushing back to July 2021. We'll get into a little bit of that at the back end of the show as well. We covered it a little bit on Sunday, but we'll do a little bit more about that on the way. But we have ourselves some great guests on the show. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And indeed, thank you to Mr. Paul Jenkins, who has joined us on the show. Hello, Paul. How are you? Oh, he's frozen a little bit. Hello there, Paul. Paul and a little, you're there. You're there. We've got you. Paul and I were supposed to talk in July 2016 for the first time. If you've been a regular viewer to this show, you'll know this story. Basically, I was doing a panel at San Diego for the British invasion of comics of the late 70s, early 80s. And we were going to be getting in Skype conversations from Paul Jenkins and Dave Gibbons. And about 30 seconds before we were about to start the panel, the internet in the room crapped out completely. And Paul was just left there in front of his webcam, wondering where this rude person who had invited him onto his panel has just left him hanging. It was so embarrassing. But we're here, we're talking to you now. Paul, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed for coming on, sir.
Yeah, no, thanks. It wasn't a problem. I technical issues, right? I've had a few of mine this week anyway, so I'm currently drilling my house to try to get a a feed all the way down into my office. And right now, the reason I got this horrible backdrop is I have a studio right around the corner where I normally broadcast everything, and I got technical issues. So everybody's getting, this is where I work back here.
Hey,
So,
listen, nothing wrong with that. Nothing. At least we've got. We have seen some very. I mean, we've had unmade beds, and we definitely usually have animals interrupting at some point. So, I mean, that's just live streaming in 2020, isn't it?
There's a guitar back here, like say. I've got staff.
I've got DJ equipment. If that helps. I mean, I can't play a note, but yeah, I'll take it. But there we go. Yeah. But listen, thank you very much indeed for coming on. As always, everybody, if you do want any questions to Paul, we'll jump in halfway through and we'll answer as many as we possibly can. But it's just great to have you to come on, especially considering your extensive career, some really big and major comics, but also just the way that you interact with your fans, because you have gotten this big podcasting kind of sideline that's going on at the moment. You're doing a lot of live streams, and it's great that you're interacting with your fans. Is that definitely the way that you are connecting with your fans nowadays?
Well, one of the things that people have always assumed about me is that I'm a comic guy, but I'm not. No. And it's always perhaps sometimes it frustrates people that I'm not hugely a comic book guy. I work in film and television. In fact, all of my jobs right now, one of them is, but I also do game work. I do game design. I have my own company. I work at my own production company here in Georgia. We have a 30% tax credit for filmmaking and digital interactive. So where people recognize me for things like, writing Spider-Man for 6 years or writing the origin of Wolverine, that's one of the things that I do, So for me, we really I've always been connected to the fans directly. I like to be the friendly guy at conventions, and I care very much about interacting with the fans. I tend to be the kind of person, Leonard, that if a fan tries to buy me a drink, I'd rather buy them one. And I just mean it genuinely. Like, I think that we all wake up, we put our trousers on one leg at a time, and we see each other at eye level. And so I have an interesting job, but I like to be a bit more ordinary. And I've always been a person that wasn't very much into the limelight of things. So in a funny way, while I've won a number of awards over time, and I've even been nominated for a couple of BAFTA awards, I've actually never been to an awards ceremony.
Really? Because that was going to be one of my questions, because I know that you won the Eisner for Marvel Knights. You never went?
No.
No?
No, I'm not interested. I think it's hard for me because, and I try not to have this stupid thing of like having something like over humility where it just doesn't mean anything. It's just that I think that if you get into a situation where you sit in a room and 6 people are there and they're sort of nominated for, say, best writer or best comic or something, it's hard to think that 5 people walk out as if they're not the best. There is no best. It's just subjective. And there's no best. You can't say best writer, best book. But I think you can appreciate the fact that those people would do it. So had I been, I would have done this, which would have really upset everybody. First of all, I would have said, I'm sorry, I don't believe in award ceremonies. And the second thing I would have said was, I'll only accept this on behalf of all of the other books that are nominated and some of the ones that weren't. And I feel bad about it, but it's just not me. I mean, I'm not that guy. So I'm not a limelight guy. And that can be a bit frustrating to people who want me to be,
No, I totally get it. I mean, I've been involved in putting together the Tripwire Awards for Portsmouth Comic Con this year, and I totally understand. I mean, because we were kind of trying to work out a way of just narrowing down talent of this industry over the course of the last 12 months, and you can't. So you end up just kind of almost throwing a dart at the wall and just doing your best to showcase some really good talent out there. So I totally understand that. Although I do, having been to a couple of Eisners, it really does seem less about the awards up on stage, more just kind of everyone just gathering and having a pint and meeting up with each other for the, because I know at conventions it's really difficult for talent to meet each other because they're either stuck doing panels or stuck behind the table, so they don't really connect. They only connect after the event, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and so in the pub is all good, right? And so we all go down the pub and we hang out. And I used to laugh with Cully Hamner, because Cully lives in Texas now, but used to be in Atlanta. We'd never see each other, and then we'd see each other every convention. So we would live near each other and then see each other in like San Diego. So that's ridiculous. And we resolved that we might actually be nice to go out for a drink here instead. Conventions are great. It's nice to see your friends, but I really like the interaction with the fans. I always have done. I love to, but I think the way that I've been with fans, it just depends on who you are, right? I don't have any issue with people that ask for money for a signature. I think that's fine if that's the way they make money. I've never charged for a signature ever, and I never will. But that's because I kind of tend to say to the fans, you've already paying my wages, you know, so I don't really need to go ask them again. But I appreciate, perhaps I have signed, but sometimes we'll do it to raise money for Hero Initiative and comics and stuff like that, you know? Well,
I want to get into that in a bit, because we've had this great coming together for Creators for Comics, which has seen some amazing artwork being put forward, but that's been to create some kind of support for the retailers. I'm going to get back to it, because I think there's definitely time for a similar initiative for the creators themselves, because if there's anyone that's very much struggling at this point, it is a creator that maybe has had all that work kind of disappear. But let's go back to the conventions really quickly. I mean, what was your first Comic-Con? Was it in the UK or was it in the US when you left? Which was the first one you'd gone to? And did you go as a pro or as a fan?
So I went as a pro. The funniest thing for me was that I was never a person working in comics in Great Britain. So people, up until I wrote Judge Dredd 2 years ago, maybe, I had never written Judge Dredd, and I really wanted to. And everyone assumed that because I was part of the British invasion, that I was a 2000 AD Judge Dredd kind of guy. And I wasn't. I'd never written it. So I finally got my chance, and I was really excited about it. I love Judge Dredd. My first one, I would say, is probably, I came over to America and I was really young, and I met a couple of guys at this black and white comic, and it was the Ninja Turtles, and it went nuts. And so I went out with Mirage to a couple of conventions, and then we would do San Diego, and then we went through Tundra Publishing.
Yeah, you're definitely frozen now.
You
definitely froze there. You definitely froze just for a second there.
I'm very sorry. I think I've had technical issues here all day, so apologies if I freeze.
Don't worry about it.
So yeah, I was saying that I went through Mirage and Tundra Publishing, which was its own unique thing. Tundra was a big story. It was really interesting, and you know, I think probably my first one was 1989.
Oh wow!
So that was, and I remember actually there's the best story. I got stuck in a lift in an elevator with a guy dressed like a Klingon, because that year the elevators in the hotel were breaking, and there are two elevators in a particular, I think it was a Hyatt, and one of them would take you up a certain way, then the other one would go up to the top floor where the bar was, right? And so we get in an elevator, and I really haven't been to any conventions, and there's a guy who's like 7 feet tall, and he's dressed like a Klingon, and then there's a holiday maker in there as well. And so the guy's kid kind of get out, and it starts going, and it stops, and it kind of makes a really loud noise. It's actually a bit scary. And I turned to the guy dressed like a Klingon, and I said, oh no, oh man, we're going to get stuck in here. And he wouldn't speak to me in English. He had to stay in character. And I had never encountered it. And I was like, what's wrong with this guy? And I said, what? You know, he sort of said, black, you know, he's talking in Klingon. And I said, what's wrong, man? And so I thought, well, this is weird. You know, obviously the guy's doing his thing, but that doesn't matter. So I'll just kind of, and after a minute, I realized that he's staring at me intently, because he's trapped in a turbo lift with a human, and I'm his enemy or something. Right? And I'm like, let me tell you something, mate. You're a bank manager, and I will beat your bank if you do that again. Like, I wouldn't argue with a pikey if I were you. So, you know, it was my first experience.
Wow. I mean, that sounds like it was. You're talking San Diego geography there. I mean, was that the? Because the one thing I wasn't able to work out was where you moved to. Because I mean, I know that you went to Mirage Studios, and you were working with Eastman and Led. Their San Diego bases. Was it San Diego that you went to? That first
No, so
one?
Kevin lives in San Diego. Kevin lives
Right.
in San Diego. No, we were in Western Massachusetts, in Northampton, Massachusetts,
Oh, wow.
in the 5 College area. And when I started, we were in a tiny, tiny office. One thing that might be of interest to you and to everyone else is Kevin and I are going, I think I mentioned this to you off camera, we're going to be doing a stream this today and every week on the actual real truth behind all of the Ninja Turtles. So in fact, we're going to be starting today on all the movies. All of our stories about going on set. I was on set with Vanilla Ice. I kid you not. It was one of the worst days of my life. So I came over here and I met them, and they were in Northampton. I started working with them, and the next thing you knew, the thing blew up. And most people see me as a creator and writer in comics, but what they forget is I was an editor for about 6 years.
Yeah. I always find it interesting with going to IDW, where they've got that mock-up of Eastman's office, which is great because it's got all of his stuff in there. But I mean, I didn't realize just how big a Rocketeer fan he was, and I'm a huge Rocketeer fan. So he's got all the like original artwork on the wall as well of Dave Stevens' artwork up on there, and I just went, I'm a Turtles fan, fine. But you and I connecting, we've never met, but you and I connecting over Rocketeer, because that is absolutely my jam. So that was amazing.
Yeah, that's funny. I have all of just from my days with Mirage, and especially with Tundra, I have all of the original art, or a lot of the original art for Big Numbers, the unpublished series. I was the editor on the book. So I have a bunch of stuff that's never been seen before.
Okay, let me just take that in for a second. Wow. Yeah, okay, that's amazing. With conventions then, I know that I mean, like you say, you weren't in the comics before you came, but was it something that you were reading, and did you actually want to go to a comic convention even as a pro? Was it something that actually appealed to you?
Well, I read comics when I was a kid, but as you know, being from Great Britain, I was a 2000 AD kind of guy, right? So I'd read 2000 AD. We grew up with those daily, like weekly comics, but they're like one-page strips, like the Beano and the Dandy and stuff. And then we would see American comics, but I grew up in a particularly difficult environment, so we didn't have comics. I didn't have anything, and I just lived in the country, and it was a challenge, but I would occasionally see. I mean, I thought Spider-Man was in London because I lived out in the countryside, and I assumed that he was just some bloke from London because he was in the city. Because I had no sense of America as a little kid, because I lived on a farm, or near a farm, I should say. So I think when I was the strange in my family, I was kind of like the white sheep, and I ended up being a different person. I left home when I was 11 and went to live somewhere else, and then I went to college by myself and studied film, and to be an actor, and also to do film and television, and that was what I was expecting to do, but I ended up coming to America and getting involved in Ninja Turtles and got involved in comics, and it was fine because I had read comics when I was a kid, so I got doing it, but I didn't really just do comics. I did licensing and animation and everything that we did in Ninja Turtles. But I found myself at Tundra really specifically doing comics. And then after that, I went off and I became an editor-in-chief of a company and then I became a freelance creator, and I found myself in comics. My first gig in comics was literally, I went to San Diego Comic-Con and I met the editor of Hellblazer, Lou Stathis. And I heard that they needed a writer, and I said, "Would you mind if I tried out for it?" And he said, "Well, what have you written?" I said, "I've never written anything." And so they let me try it for Hellblazer, and 6 weeks later, they told me, "You're the writer of Hellblazer."
Wow.
Yeah.
So I always like asking this question. Then, how did you learn to write a comic script? Was it a case of you wrote it like a film script? Because obviously, there's several people that kind of will go to the back of, say, some special editions or some anniversary editions and find some scripts and think, okay, so that's how you write a comic script. That's the layouts that you would use. Although I can imagine some people would go to, I don't know, a Grant Morrison script and almost pass out and just wonder what on earth did you actually had to do to write a comic script. How did you approach those initial scripts? Was it just as almost like a screenplay?
In a way that is so bloody minded and stubborn, you can't believe.
Okay.
So when I worked at Tundra, I was so tired. I was really young, and I was the editor-in-chief there. I was super young. I was head of licensing there, and head of production. And so I had this 3 business cards, and it was pretty crazy. As part of it, we had too many projects, and some of my projects were the most problematic. So I had big numbers. I had From Hell. I was the original publisher. I was the editor for Neil Gaiman, Alan Moore, Dave McKean. And so I had Alan's scripts for Big Numbers and From Hell. And I went to Great Britain at one point to talk to him about the work. And he showed me the original designs for Big Numbers. And it was a kind of like a big square, like this. It was like this big square, and it had all of the characters here and all of the stuff down. It was the craziest thing, and it showed you the arc for every single character, and I was so amazed. But one of the things I got talking about Alan, just stories and that, and Alan's a really affable guy, straightforward. He and I were very friendly, and I thought, that's funny. The way that this guy thinks is the way that I think. In terms of story. And at the time, mid-90s, I was actually quite frustrated with comics. I didn't think that the product was that good. I thought it was like sort of a mediocre attempt to tell stories, maybe, but it was all flash and no substance. And I'm sitting there talking with Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman about actual substance. And I thought, I want to try doing this. So I would take Alan's scripts home and I would read them and then start basically trying to learn to write. And I can't type, man. Even to this day, I look at the keyboard when I type. I'm a terrible typist because I know I was never trained. But I'm very prolific. I move really quickly in the work I do. So I suppose my teachers were Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman. That's not bad.
That's not bad at all. I can't remember who shared the first pages, because we had J.H. Williams on a podcast ago talking about Promethea, and it was Scott Dumbier who was sharing he showed a photo of the first 5 pages of the script of Promethea, which all in oh, excuse me, let me just cancel that. Cancel.
Alan's scripts used to be this big. I guess I'm getting green screen, but Alan's scripts used to, for one script for From Hell would be about that thick. It was crazy.
Yeah. Just incredible. It's all in block capitals, all completely full in text. First 5 pages, and that was describing the first page of Promethea. And yeah, I can imagine just looking at Alan Moore scripts is just it's something else. It's like pouring of a mind out onto the page. It's quite impressive.
Yeah, he writes them in a really unique way. I don't write like him. I just realized that I thought like he did. He would, for example, one of the things that he said, I had been thinking about whether or not I'd be interested in writing comics. I wasn't sure about it because I wasn't a typist, but I thought that I was a storyteller, and obviously I'd studied filmmaking and I wanted to tell stories. The interesting part to me was that we got to talking about how does he tell a story, and he said, Paul, every page I put it together and I like to tell a story of one page. So you can just hold the page up and you would look at the page and you go, that tells a story by itself. And I thought, yeah, that's what I would have been thinking of doing. I thought, that's good. It gives me a bit of confidence that maybe I'm thinking in a way that of a guy that I really respect. Maybe I'm onto something. Maybe I should be a writer. And it was that particular conversation that actually catalyzed me really saying, why don't I try to do it? Crazy thing. The very first thing that I created before I had a chance to write Hellblazer, when I was working at Tundra, I created the Sentry.
Which I was going to mention at some point because it's possibly my favorite character you've done. I love the Sentry as a character. I love the way it was also introduced into the industry. I thought that was rather cool.
Yeah, it was a fun time. We'll definitely talk about that. That was definitely fun.
Excellent. I wanted to talk about conventions as well, because obviously that is the key topic of what this podcast is about, and we have had some great stories when it comes to talent like yourself going to conventions, but like you say, you kind of came to conventions from a slightly different angle. But what were your thoughts on San Diego Comic-Con that first year? Because you obviously you went and you spoke to Lee Stathis, but it's a totally different animal to what it is today, or in the current time. What was your first impressions of San Diego Comic-Con back then?
My first San Diego Comic-Con was 1990. In fact, I'm certain of it because we had opened Tundra, and I'd gone to Tundra at that point from Mirage, right? So now we had this new publishing company, and that publishing company was insane, right? It was a time in history that I don't think will ever be repeated. Some of the highlights of that first convention were me running down a hallway trying to stop one of our employees who was very drunk and had a beef with Neil Gaiman and was ready and was apparently stalking the hall to prove a point and punch Neil Gaiman. And I ran down the hallway and rugby tackled the guy and made him stop. Because I was the guy in shape. I played soccer, football. I played 6 times a week, so I was in shape. So I sort of stopped him and went, "Don't even think about it, mate." And it was sort of like a crazy time. Tundra was particularly crazy. There's never going to be anything like it, but it was very crazy. And so my first San Diego, most people that know me know that if you want something crazy to happen, stand near me at a convention, because all comic book creators have great convention stories. I think a lot of people would admit that some of mine are the craziest of crazy. I've got some really good ones.
By all means, if you'd like to share any of them.
Yeah, I can share a couple of them. They're funny. They're funny stories. If you stand near me, though, I mean, just in life, I happen to be a guy that seems to be like a lightning rod for something weird. So if a meteor comes through your ceiling in about 5 minutes, I'm simply going to say, "Sorry, mate, I told you." I warned you. So my first San Diego Comic-Con, I got trapped in an elevator with a Klingon. I stopped someone from punching Neil Gaiman. We were Tundra, so everybody was all over us because we had money to burn and we were throwing it everywhere. It was crazy. But I was on the other side of the table. I was an editor. I was a head of production. So there is a kind of a cool story. Back in the day when we did Tundra, I was editor for like Dave McKean. I was editor for George Pratt, who just a brilliant artist, did Enemy, Ace, War Idol, and Dave McKean did Cages with us, and Kent Williams. So we had all these incredible artists that we worked with, and they were really high. So I would be on a table, and they'd be lining up, and they'd be signing copies. And it's early 90s. Once you went through the early 90s, you had the Image thing and all of that stuff. When I say crazy stuff happens to me, I was standing there when the very first issue of Spawn came off the line. I was actually at Quebecor Publishing, and they were happening to print Spawn #1 the day I was there, and they ran this copy off the line. I stood there and watched it. That's kind of norm for me. I found conventions to be a thing. I think I found my place, and my place is I'm a carnival barker. I like everybody. I've always been a pretty affable kind of person, and so if you come anywhere near me, I'll say, "Hey, how's it going?" and just be pretty straightforward with people. And I think that Marvel appreciated it when I worked over there, and the fans generally know that they can just kind of walk over to me and say hi, and I'll say hi back and chat with them for a while. I'm as likely to ask a fan about their life and who they are because I like people,
So, I mean, what was the highlights with the fans then? Was there any particular highlight other than the Klingon, who wasn't a fan, who was clearly staring you down? Was there any highlights over the years?
I can give you one highlight, but I will tell you in advance that it is a story that is not sad, but very thought-provoking. So it's
Fair
not
enough.
I've always been a person that I think I will never make fun of a fan, for example, or anything like that. I don't like it when creators like ignore fans. They sit back, they don't even look at the fans. But you have to understand something, and I think this is fair to ask everybody, which is we're not trained to do this. I happen to be quite good at it. I quite like talking to the fans, but some of our other fellow creators are not trained, and some of them are a bit socially awkward, perhaps. Some creators, are wonder whether or not they should be talking to people or whatever. So, forgive us if we're not all perfect at this. But what I would say is, I think I have this
likewise for the fans, to be honest.
Yeah.
Likewise for the fans.
Yeah, the fans are awkward. I made one mistake one time of cracking a joke kind of at the expense of a fan. I didn't really mean it, but there was a guy who would dress as Captain America at one of the conventions, and he was a really big guy. He was like 300 pounds, and he was a strange guy because he would not be able to fit the suit. It would go down to here, and then his stomach would show, so he would paint the rest of the costume. I'm not kidding you. That guy is real. And he insisted that we call him Steve. And I loved the guy. And he would stand on the edge with his shield, and he would just protect everybody going by. And he was a complete nut. And I loved him. I thought he was a nice guy. And I just was like, Steve's there to protect the day. And he was, big dude. And one time I was on the Wolverine Origin panel, and he came up, and I'd never seen Steve speak. And I was up on this big panel. There were like 3,000 or 4,000 people in San Diego. And suddenly Steve is standing in the line to ask a question into the microphone. And I turned to everybody and I said, "There, Steve's going to ask a question. Have you ever heard him speak?" So Steve comes up and he said, "Okay, the big question on everybody's mind, who's going to win?" And I didn't really know what he was talking about. He said, the big upcoming comic, who's going to win between Captain America and Wolverine? And I said, and it's to my shame that I said it. I said, because I thought I liked Steve, and I said, well, Steve, judging by where you're going today, I think Wolverine stands a pretty good chance, right? But it was at Steve's expense. I didn't like it. I realized afterwards, and I went to go apologize to him and say, "Mate, you know what? I shouldn't have done that. I didn't care for that, because I'm not that guy. I wouldn't make fun of him." But I will tell you, there's a really thought-provoking story that is a story for me that I've got two stories of my career that really mean something to me in terms of fan interaction. When I was with the Ninja Turtles, I'll tell them both perhaps. When I was with the Ninja Turtles, I had worked with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. We were super busy, and I loved the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I like kids, and I think that kids who are struggling with bad illness really deserve a chance to just be happy. And we had the Ninja Turtles, man, and we were going to make people happy. And I had a mum who wrote to me, and she told me that her little boy was really sick, and asked me if I could get Raphael to go visit him. And there was no way, because there were two sets of suits in those days, and the license was a performance license. So there was one in the West Coast and one on the East Coast. And I called every favor I could, and I found a way to get the Raphael guy to go to visit him at the hospital, and he flew in.
Wow.
I pulled every string I could and made sure it was paid for and everything. So the guy flew in, and he called me up afterwards, and he was crying. And I said, well, what happened? And he said, well, look, basically he got there, and the little kid was, that he got to the hospital, and he's walking up there with his head under his arm. And he said the little kid was really sick, and the doctors and the nurses and the parents were standing at the door, and they saw him, and they called him over, and they asked him, would you be willing to go in and see him, because it may be the last thing he sees. Whoa. So he did, and he was crying when he went in, and the little kid was sitting there, and he said he was just looked like a little peanut. That's the way he described him to me. And he had tubes all over his body. And as he walked in to see the kid saw him and sat bolt right up in bed and said, Raphael, I knew you would come. And so they talked for about 15 minutes. And then the little boy said, I'm a bit tired. I haven't been very well. Will you be there when I wake up? I need to go to sleep. And so he said, yeah, I'll be there. And then he went to sleep, and he never woke up again.
Whoa. And
so I had a letter that a lady sent to me, and she said, I want you to know that it was the worst day of my life, but I'm very grateful to you because my child left with a smile, and that was because of the work that you put in. And so when you get that early on in your career, you realize that my job is a privilege, and that my communication with fans is my privilege. It's my responsibility. And so what happens with fans is that they think, you know, that I'm one of their best friends. They read my work all the time. And so that little child, yes, he moved on to a different place, but he went with a smile. And so we helped move him a little bit. And his mum, I can't imagine, because I'm a parent, I have 2 younger children. I've got an 8-year-old and a 14-year-old. And if, you know, losing a child must be impossible. But knowing that we had that power to perhaps help and to help that parent, that was probably one of the most profound moments in my career. And it taught me something. So I took that with me everywhere I went. And it didn't matter how awkward somebody was and how difficult they were, how rude they were, or anything. I was very grateful that I was in the position that I'm in, to interact with them. You know, I know that was a heavy story. I know
it was, but I mean, I think it also speaks to the power of story and power of character that that young lad had, that connection with Raphael, with the turtles, which at the end of the day it's a strange story. At the best of times, you can just kind of approach just off the bat, just the idea of the turtles, but obviously there was that connection with the character and the fact that there was that immediate reaction, however ill he was at that time, to have that reaction. And I think that also plays on a lot of people's reactions to story and the way that you bring stories to life with what you do.
Yeah, that's right. And so, you know, you get these connections with people, and you know, I respect that connection, right? I love that connection. And so I think that, you know, when someone come up to me, you know, we have a book called Fairy Quest that I've done a couple of times, and we're about to go bring it back on Kickstarter and reinvent the book. And it's a really lovely book. It was really kind of beloved. And one of the things about it was that it's the book that I've done in my career where I can give it to a 5-year-old little girl and she will walk away and go, you know, you tell her like Red Riding Hood and the Wolf are best friends, and she will go, what? You rock my world. But we can also go to a 60-year-old man and give it to him, and we know he's coming back and say, you know, I read this book and I love this. Is there a second one? And I love that. It's what made me really realize that as much as it's fun to do the mainstream comics, it wasn't really what I planned on doing with my life. So I wasn't like a lot of people where I desperately need to write Spider-Man. I desperately need to get Batman in. A lot of people are like that. Just I wasn't. And I think that actually was an advantage for me, because obviously when I got to writing mainstream comics, I wasn't beholden to all the millions that had been written. I hadn't read them. and what's funny is, you know, obviously we got a great mutual friend in Jimmy Palmiotti, and Jimmy kind of knows this, but when I was asked about the Inhumans, it was Jay Lee who called me up, and I'd been writing Hellblazer, and he said, hey, do you want to work with this thing called Marvel Nights? And I said, yeah, that sounds good, because he and I had been talking about doing a crossover for years, and it was never going anywhere. And he said, well, how do you feel about the Inhumans? And I said, yeah, that sounds great. Who are they? I've never heard of them, because I don't know anything. And so they sent me a couple of little 5-page Kirby comics, and I said, that's it, great. That's all I need. I get it. So I think you're either going to be a massive fan of comics and do it, or a creator that happens to do it. And I never planned on doing comics at all. I planned on doing film, which is what I do now, and mostly. And I found myself in game design and game work and new media. I just did a TED talk, by the way, on the future of storytelling. So I'm very excited. I can tell my mum I did a TED talk.
Nice. Actually, I was going to say, because just in case anyone's interested, because we were talking about mutual friends there, because Jimmy Palmiotti is actually kind of like loitering in the background of this particular live stream, because we're going to be bringing him on to talk about his Kickstarter. Do you mind if I bring him on now?
Bring him on.
Is that okay? Because Jimmy, it's a pleasure to have you joining us as well.
Hey, guys.
Hi there. I mean, I think what I was going to bring up with Paul is also something we can talk to you about, Jimmy, as well, because we are in this very strange time, this very, it's just such a surreal period in history. And certainly when it comes to the way that it's affected businesses, the economy, the way that people's lives have just been completely taken aback by this whole thing. And obviously, we've had over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, the Creators for Comics initiative. And I mean, Paul, you've been a strong advocate for creators' rights throughout your career. I mean, what's your take on Creators for Comics, the pair of you? And also, do you see a campaign coming to support comics creators?
I did one of the auctions. I put up ridiculous things. I put up 2 giant rolls of toilet paper and some comics, and then the invites from the Birds of Prey movie, the premieres we went to. So Amanda and I signed them, and a guy in the UK won them. So of course I had this expensive package just to shove this stuff in. Thank God he passed on the toilet paper, because the rolls I had these industrial rolls. They're like that big. And he goes, no, just give me some comics instead. And I was like, thank you. As you can see how weird it is over my shoulder here, over that shoulder. Wait, that shoulder. I have a watermelon and some food there. That's like we're staging area. We bring the food in, take the bags up, let that sit for a day if it can, and then we bring it upstairs and clean. It's so crazy, but again, it's weird times, especially with the comic, the billion-dollar comic companies, the $1 million telling people to stop working, which I don't get, or not giving them any more work, and a lot of people are in that boat. I finished my last book I did for DC, and I do not have any more work in front of me. A guy like me doesn't sit around though, so I'm getting on my Kickstarters. I'm doing my other work, but it's really interesting. To what I found with all of this is how companies look at their creatives. How disposable they are, or how they don't back them up. Like, I love that Jim Lee's out there doing all those drawings for the comic shops and everything, but at the same time, I think this is the first time in a while I haven't had work lined up. That doesn't mean there isn't going to be work. I'm just not running after it. You know what I mean? That's like, I need this break a little bit. But a lot of people are in a weird spot because they haven't been saving, or they haven't, they thought everything would be great for a while, and they bought way beyond their means. And a person like me doesn't get caught off guard because I grew up with no money. So as I get things like this house I'm in and everything, I actually don't get it until I can pay it off. And I don't believe in having a large amount of credit. I have no credit on my credit cards because I only use American Express, and I have to pay it off at the end of the month. I'm lucky that way. I've always planned my life with that. And I also, look at me. I don't really spend much money on myself. Look, it's sad. I eat and I spoil Amanda. That's my full-time job. But it's gonna be tough. I think all these things online are great. I love to see the creators stepping up. I mean, I tried not to bid on a bunch of things because I wanted to get some drawings, and I just figured the minute I bid on them, somebody's gonna go, "Oh yeah, Jimmy Palmiotti's bidding on it." Like he's gonna win it or something. So I've been hanging back, but we're all doing our own things. I think it's just gonna be a new world, and I'm out of panic mode. I think the first 2 weeks, everybody was in panic mode, especially with weird things like toilet paper you never thought twice about, and paper towels and food. And I think the new normal is just slowly sliding in, and I'm hoping the comic books companies get back to where they were, but I can't depend on them.
Sure.
I don't depend on them for my medical coverage. I don't depend on them. So they're just gigs. I have to look at the companies, and even ones I've been loyal to for 20-something years, 30-something years. I have to look at them as just like freelance, like a freelancer should. They're not going to be there tomorrow. So what else do I have planned?
Yeah, I have a sort of a different trajectory maybe than many people. For one thing, I have never been a comic guy. I just have done a lot of comics. I work in that business. But, right now, all of my work, I'm writing a screenplay for somebody. We're developing a film. I've got an animated project that I'm doing. I've got a new digital storytelling project that we're doing. So I haven't really been a comic book guy unless I do a comic, right? Like Jimmy, if you ask me what I really care about, yeah, it's the kind of like Fairy Quest and Kickstarter stuff and things like that. Those mean something. you know, I care about every piece of work that I do, but I unfortunately have, and this is not me being a curmudgeon, this is just the way it is. I feel a bit like I'm not going to be the best defender of the comic industry. I am of the retailers, I am of the fans, I am of the creators, but the industry has always been broken. It's been broken since I was at Tundra. We knew we couldn't, you know, we published From Hell, and Alan Moore, you know, had sold 85,000 copies of Big Numbers, which is a square-bound 48-page book. We published From Hell, and it sold 2,500 copies, and we knew there was something wrong. We knew something was up in the state of Denmark the moment that we got the numbers, and we went to Diamond, the capital city, with Tundra Publishing, and we had retailers come up to us and say, "I ordered 60 copies. Why did you send me 2?" And we said, "We didn't. We had got orders for 2,500 copies of Alan Moore's new book. You tell me what's going on." So whatever's been going on, always, frankly, the structure of the comic industry has always been broken for all of these poor people that are trying to make it work. You try to be a retailer and buy it in the direct market. You have to basically, as a publisher, sell to your sales force before they can sell it. They're speculating their money to try and work out what to sell. And they've got like limited rack space and stuff like that. The comics industry has always been problematic. And I feel that a thing like coronavirus that would be difficult for people is the kind of thing that just like blows up this industry, because it was hanging by a thread. It was always.
I mean, the fact that it happened in such a short space of time. I mean, Diamond went from doing what it was doing to being pretty much a non-entity in 2 weeks. It was insane.
Well, you know, since 1990, when we opened Tundra Publishing, and you know, we had Diamond and Capital City, Heroes World, and bunch of. When you basically work with a monopoly, that's kind of what's going to happen to you, right? So even though they said it wasn't monopoly, and it, you know, well, you know, they were technically this. It's like, listen, you've had a monopoly, and if that monopoly is dominating the way that the entire industry works, and then you take that monopolized situation away, everybody's screwed. So this industry's always been broken, and it's a shame because comic books are the oldest form of human artistic expression. Cave paintings are comic books. We do sequential narrative. It's like, it's what we do. It's hardwired into humans' ability to understand visual storytelling. But we can't, in America, we don't do comics the way the rest of the world does. And I grew up in the rest of the world, as you did, Leonard. And so we get Asterix the Gaul, and we get like all this variable stuff. But the dominant thing in America is just superhero comics. And I wish it wasn't, because in other industries, it used to, now it's different because of the films, but it used to be that superheroes were marginalized and the mainstream was like crime and stuff like that. But in comics, crime stories and different stories, they're like not the norm, and superheroes are the mainstream. It's very backwards. And I feel that the creators have always been vulnerable. And, you know, I've been a big creator advocate always. Sure. I feel like the retailers have already been vulnerable. I feel like the fans' ability to go get the product that they want has been always compromised. And I also feel even just the naive way in which some of these publishers have approached digital publishing. Like, I don't want to do that. You don't want to buy it on an iPad and press a button to pretend that you're turning a page. You want digital products that tell a story the right way. So maybe that's a little bit too vocal, but I hope it's a defense of the retailers and creators and fans. But this industry needed to be different. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I agree with you, Paul. They're gonna use this coronavirus break. They're gonna come back and reduce the number of the books. They're gonna get rid of half their staff. They're gonna cut the rates, page rates. You know, all this stuff's gonna happen. Oh, there's Dave. Yeah. They're gonna do a lot of manipulating. Hello, Dave. Good morning.
We've been talking about you behind your back.
Not yet.
That's usual.
But I think they're going to use this opportunity to change a lot of things in the business. And I've always been one of those people that I just keep looking ahead. You know, I'm like, what do people? My whole thing, and especially like Dave and I have the Kickstarter now, is we're selling it directly to the people. And if they want it, they buy it. If they don't, they don't. Look, we have like a level for retailers if they want to order a stack of the books, but I've always learned, and maybe this is the Italian and maybe this is the Brooklyn kid, is I can't make anybody happy until I'm happy. So I have to, and healthy. So I have to be in a healthy place in order so I can think with a non-panic brain and help others. Because if I'm panicking, I'm not going to be helping anybody.
Yeah, I'm with
Okay.
Well, I was going to say that, you know, when you look at it, like the things that make sense to me are direct interactions with fans. Now, I care about the retailers. I know I've got plenty of friends who are retailers, and I want them to be okay. But I feel that the system that they've been working under of having to be dictated to by a monopoly distributor, by two major publishers that like give them terms that are difficult to follow, with too much product that's really hard to like shelve. You know, I just don't think it's realistic to think that they could shelve all of these books and then give other comics enough space. I always wish that people would go to the Laughing Ogre in Columbus, Ohio, and learn how they do their comic book store, because it's brilliant. They're amazing, and they sell all kinds of independent books and all kinds of stuff, right? And they're really good at it. So, you know, superheroes is a part of their business, but the way, and they've always done very well. But we haven't done that, and it's been 30 years that I've been in this business, and I've never seen it fixed. It's always been problematic and dominated by different places. And so I feel like maybe, just maybe, like some other things, at least COVID is an awful thing. It's terrible. But I wonder if it's a bit of a wake-up call to restructure things in a way that might have been necessary, you know?
I'm really curious to see if, I mean, off the two things that you brought up, for myself, I've been really encouraged by the fact that we've seen the DC and the Marvel booths get smaller to some degree, while the independent, or what are considered the independents, are getting bigger and bigger. You talk about the superheroes still being the dominant force, certainly in mainstream media, but certainly for comics, I think that balance is starting to shift, and you're starting to see a lot more less cape stories, and you're seeing some really great original stories coming from all sorts of corners, from all sorts of independent publishers. So I'm starting to see those independent publishers really making a massive impact in what stories are being told in comics. And as for the retailing, like you say, Diamond, I mean, we've been talking about this on this show for a couple of weeks now, that maybe it deserves to die because of that stranglehold it's had on the industry, but it has that infrastructure in place, and that's kind of the reason why it has that monopoly. But yeah. I'm curious to see if we're going to see a lot more Kickstarter babies off the back of this.
Diamond shouldn't have to die. I mean, Diamond should just, like everything else, compete with other businesses. It's okay. You know, we need that. As far as the Kickstarters, Dave and I were talking about this. I've had so many people ask me, like, hey, maybe I should do a Kickstarter. And then once I start explaining how much work it is to them, they constantly go, oh, I can, no, wait, I got to mail all the packages? And wait a minute, I have to deal with the printer? Or, and they come at me and they're like, oh, so how do you do that? And, there's a million questions about it. And because I don't want to write the same things over and over, I just say, go to YouTube and ask, how do I do a Kickstarter, and watch a video, please. But it's only going to work with certain creators. Anybody that's done it before understands this, that unless you have follow through, unless you have things set up, at least unless you have the book ready to go, you probably should not be engaging with people or making promises, because we all have Kickstarters that we've never gotten our books from, or people that just disappeared. And by the way, I get people write me all the time, can you talk to this guy? I never got my Kickstarter. And I'm like, that's not even a relative of mine. I can't call this guy up and go, hey, give the people their money back. But these people hurt us, right? Because we're delivering and those people aren't. And Dave, this is your first one, so this is a good one for Dave, I think.
Yeah, I think the major problem with creatives is they want to be creative, not business runners. You almost need a business partner to do a Kickstarter. Somebody to take care of the minutia of stuff that creative people just aren't very good at. Yeah. So me included. I mean, I'd probably be the worst person to do a Kickstarter by myself. So,
Well, we are going to get into the project that you two have launched, and we are going to do that as our featured thing. In fact, I think we'll move on to that and say, Paul, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I mean, I think it's clear that we could just keep going and talk endlessly. I mean, we could just keep going. I've been trying to keep these shows to about an hour. That's been horribly mismanaged over the course of the last couple of weeks because we have had some great guests, and you guys have just been fantastic to come together and talk about your thoughts on the industry. Paul, it's been a pleasure. We're going to let you get on and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much indeed for coming on. Where can people find you online and what you're up to?
Well, first of all, it's really nice to see my mates. Like, we never talk, right? So there you
go.
Yeah. You know.
I mean, well, do you want to stick around? Because, like I said, we're going to talk about this Kickstarter. Would you like to?
I have to prep. So again, like I said, I don't do comics as much. So I'm literally in the middle of a job right now. We're editing a film.
Fair enough.
Yes, a tune, maybe background music, Paul. You got your keyboard right there.
Yeah, I can play.
You got a little thing of blueberries there. You can eat while you're playing the piano. I love it.
Yeah. I got stuff all over the place.
Well, don't feel bad. I have the sexy watermelon over there.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen something about Mary or any of those films? You know what a watermelon on the floor means. I'm not going to say any more about that.
Well, what I would tell you is that my company is Meta Studio, like META, Meta. And Meta is, you know, an overview, but actually Meta is an acronym for Media, Education, Technology, and Advancement. We do a lot of education here. I chaired an advisory committee for the former governor of Georgia on film and digital interactive. So we've been working here for a while. What we're doing is, though, tonight, which might be fun for anybody that's watching, tonight, that would be Wednesday, the whatever this is, 23rd of April. Kevin Eastman and I are getting on at 7 p.m. today. It's part of Meta's streams, and we are going to be starting a series of reviews and recaps of the days of Mirage and Tundra. There's a story that's never been told. Lots of people have tried to tell the story about Tundra Publishing and Mirage, but you know, Kevin and I always laugh about it and go like, that never happened, or that's half of the story. So you know, if you really want to know the truth behind what happened with Big Numbers, because people do. If you want to know what we really did in all of those days and how crazy it was to be at the premieres and make the films, that's what Kevin and I are going to be doing tonight. So if anybody wants to come on board, just come and see.
Where would be the best place for people to find the links for that?
Meta Studios, I think I could probably share a link with you before I disappear. I should be able to find.
Oh, look at this. Here we go.
At some point, I'm going to learn how technology works, and I'm going to be able to find that link. Give me 1 second. I'm going to basically talk until I can find it.
It's okay. Jimmy is gladly entertaining us with this.
Yeah, I have a original art from Big Numbers.
Yeah, did I give that to you?
No.
I didn't.
Well, I think you still have the one you wanted to give me. So let me give you my address if you want to give me that one.
No, I have the covers to issue 4. I've got about 20 pages of issue 3 that was never published.
Well, that was actually a question from earlier, because I know that this is something I have neglected to do, which is bring up a couple of the questions. And one of the questions was from Into the Blue Mister, does Paul have the Sienkiewicz art for the unpublished Big Numbers #3?
Yeah, I do. Do you want to see some?
Yes.
You got to give me one.
Sorry, was I a bit loud on that one?
I bought the 2-page sequence from issue 1 where the kid throws the bolt through the train window as it's going by with the girl in it. You know? So I bought those years ago from Scott Dunbar. We brought Scott up earlier in the conversation because he was talking about because we were talking about script writing and how Paul was learning about putting those initial first scripts together, and we're talking about Scott doing that tweet earlier on over the weekend of the first page of Promethea, and it's 5 full type pages. Very cool. Very cool. But look at this.
This would be the unpublished cover of issue 5 or 6.
He's such an artist, Bill.
This is all these
insects.
There's the Mandelbrot set right here.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Outstanding.
Did you pull it off the wall?
Say again?
Did you pull it off the wall?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, nice, man.
So it's been hanging on the wall.
Yeah, he has as well.
There you go.
Outstanding.
Dave has an impressive wall of art. But Dave, you can't move your camera around, but Dave has some really great stuff on the wall.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's actually I've got a couple of pieces right here.
There you go.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Beautiful.
We're all art junkies.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. It's our weakness is why we fall in love with comics, because it's a visual medium. We love this art, man. You know.
The creators for comics thing must absolutely have killed you.
Yeah. And look at Dave's arms. I mean, even Dave's arms are little works of art. Put your arm up there. Look at that. I did that. We had a drunken weekend, and Dave and I. I ended with the dragon's tail. You can figure out where that is.
It's only consolation minor, but of a work of art as well.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, listen, you guys go do your thing. I got to get back to my life, but come find us on the Meta Studio stream tonight, because Kevin and I are going to be doing that stuff, and it'll be fun if you guys want to show up. It's
great.
Story's never been told, so here we go.
All right.
It sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. Paul, thank you very much indeed for joining us, sir.
See you guys. Have a great time. Bye.
Take care. Wow. Okay. Like I say, this was going to be like a 50-50 thing, and then we were going to smoothly bring in Jimmy or Dave or a combination of the two, but that is turned into a little bit of a free-for-all, and that's great. I hope you're enjoying the show, and I hope you're up for this bit, because each and every week or each and every episode, what we've been doing is showcasing a crowdfunding effort that's caught our attention. This is one that I am particularly enthusiastic about, at which point I then said, would you guys like to come on and actually talk about it? And they have agreed to do so. So officially, Dave and Jimmy, thank you very much indeed for coming on.
Thank you.
Good to be on.
Right, so we are talking about this incredible Kickstarter, which, considering it was launched, just a few days ago?
Monday.
On a Monday, it's doing in great guns on the raising of funds already. Just absolutely impressive to see how successful it's going so far. Popkill. I mean, Dave, you're saying it's your first one. I mean, how's it been to put this Kickstarter together?
Oh, it's been incredible. Well, I mean, Jimmy's an old pro at it. I mean, he's like the Svengali of Kickstarters. So, you know, having him, you know, basically be the lead guy on the Kickstarter has been, you know, I can't lie, it's been easy for me. I mean, I just do what he says, and everything has worked out, you know.
Oh,
so,
Dave underestimating his power. I mean, look at the visual on that. Look at that graphic. I mean, how could you not want to know what that is?
Sure.
You know, Dave's got this. He's one of the best comic book cover artists. Actually, one of the best artists I know.
Well, I have to give credit to Ryan Hughes for that incredible logo. You know, I was lucky enough to get him for basically nothing as a friend favor, and you know, he really, you know, I told him what I wanted. You know, I wanted something, you know, that had the duality of soda pop and violence, and you know, he really brought it together with that logo. So, you know, it all worked out, you know.
How long's it taken to put this project together?
Quite a while.
Yeah. So it's 4 issues. It's 4 full issues. And we've written all 4. And Juan is probably still working on maybe the 3rd one. He's in his making around. So we decided to sit on it until we had stuff done, you know, because we wanted to deliver the kicks. Anybody that backs this, the minute their credit cards get charged after it's done, they're gonna get the digital book bang right in their mailbox and right in their email, and then we're gonna go to press and hopefully get the book in everybody's hands within a month. If the printer can push it through within the 3 weeks we figured out, We should have like some really super quick turnover. And it's funny because we hit the goal yesterday, which was great, amazing, you know. And we started thinking about the goals. And the funny thing is, you know, we were going to do 4 of these total, but we made the goals that if somebody gets if we can get it to 100,000, we'll actually give everyone that backed it the second issue. So they'll get another comic. And then if it goes to 130,000, we're going to give everybody the third issue. And then if it goes to 200, which would be abstract, don't get me wrong, these are crazy numbers. But if it gets to that, we're going to give everybody the 4th issue. So you have potential to back this for, let's say, the book for $20. You have potential to get all 4 if the campaign blows up. You know.
Well, I think it's safe to say that's definitely the case. I mean, 27 days to go. It's up on screen at the moment. We've got the Kickstarter page. I mean, it's in UK at the moment because obviously that's where I'm based. Just over £24,000 pledged. Of 26, no, it's a 24,000 goal, nearly £27,000 pledged already. So I mean, I'd have to do the calculation on that, but just the fact that it's reached that total, it's just incredible to see. I mean, like I say though, the actual stretches and the pledges levels that you've just made this very easy to come in and really discover the story, even just a small pledge, which is just fantastic.
Yeah, the trick to these, right, is we understand that everybody only has a certain attention span. And so we had John J. Hill design all the levels visually so people can just go right to them and see what it is right away. Even the stretch goals are laid out pretty easily. And because I support a ton of them. I think I backed hundreds of them. And if it goes on forever, or if I just want to get to what am I buying? What is this book about? How do I get this? And what are the levels I can get? Because I tend to go towards any kind of level that has something unique or weird to it. So I've done 12 of these before. This is my 13th. So I have a very large learning curve. I'm still on the curve right now. I haven't straightened up the wheels yet, but with each one, I'm learning a little bit more. And I'm also seeing what things work. Like you just had Amanda Connor Naughty Cover scroll by.
Sure.
The thing about that is if I show the cover, there's no mystery and you can either buy it or not, right? But in the Kickstarters in the past, that's always been my first thing to sell out because people love a little bit of a mystery. And Amanda always delivers. We never had a bad piece from her, so she always delivers. This actually gives her extra stress while she's working because she seems to do it. And but we also showed Dave's cover, which is amazing. We just censored some nipples because obviously nipples can kill people and some ass crack. Unless Dave drew those little censors on there. Did you draw it?
No.
There's actual ass on those things.
I was gonna say instead of censored, we should have used the like Popso logo, but you know that was like an afterthought.
Well, some people might think that's actually going to be.
No, that's true. That's true.
You know, I would love to make it one day. Do a book where the cover was so glossy you can actually just pull those censored things off like stickers. You know, that would be. But. Nice. But let's be honest. I mean, other than Kickstarter, you really, any nudity in a comic now, it's like either you can't put it in a retailer's thing. So we're trying to give people things that they can't get elsewhere. And again, of course, Juan Santa Cruz drew an amazing book. I mean, it's just a beautiful looking book. So beyond all this stuff, we're actually super hyped about the product. So yeah, so Popkill we're going to be working on it while people are still bidding, still backing it, but we hope to get a pretty big audience. I would love nothing more than to have to go to print with 4 actual books and give everybody all 4 books. Nothing would make me happier because all our expenses would be covered and then everybody can get everything and I don't have to do separate Kickstarters. So that would be my dream thing on it. But right now, look, 2 days in, I'm happy as hell. I'm hoping to reach out to people who never backed Kickstarters before and give it a try. I will say the 12 I've done, nobody's ever not gotten their book. And I don't have a single customer that has any issues or problem. I take care of people above and beyond. My brain set is they are friends of mine, and I take care of my friends. So that's the way I treat all the customers.
I think really successful Kickstarters, or the ones that I've been paying attention to, the ones that really work, are the ones where you have, like you say, a proven record in actually delivering the product. Right. And I think that's generally in comics anyway. That's what you want, that reliability, that you know that person or that team is going to bring the product to bear. And then also just knowing that it's going to be bloody good. And from the peer review, you know it's going to be a really good story. And the artwork, like I say, we've got this up on screen at the moment, and we can just go full screen so people can just check this out. It's just absolutely, it's gorgeous stuff.
Yeah, and we're also sticklers for paper quality and spot varnish and packaging. And then each book, besides the bag and the board, we actually have a 2-sided color certificate of authenticity with a hologram on it, where we actually register the number of the book, because we're limited. These are limited runs. So we actually can track all the books in a weird way, but it's our way of saying, look, there's only 300 of these on Earth, you know, and if you get this tier, it's like, those are the only copies. I'm not going to magically have a box of them at a con right there. I don't do that, you know. So when we say limited, it's actually limited, and which is kind of rare, because, you know, even when they do the 1 in 50 covers, some of the companies, they actually print thousands more of them, you know, but we don't do that because we're printing right to the order. We only print enough. We print a small percentage in case there's damages, because I have to always deal with the fact that we have very aggressive mailmen who like to roll envelopes. So we always have to replace those.
But also, you know, besides the guarantee that you're going to get it, compared to a lot of Kickstarters, you're getting it almost immediately, you know, which a lot of Kickstarters, you may get it, but you might have to wait a year, you know, while the artist actually draws it. So this is a good one that you buy it, as soon as it clears, you get the product. So,
yeah, we send it and we sign them. You know, Dave's book will be signed by Dave. I'm signing every edition of it. So it's something a little extra you can't get. And that's basically what I learned with the Kickstarters is, on some level, it's a store. You have to give people what they want. On another level, you better deliver a great comic book, otherwise they won't come back for the second one. And again, we're in a very what's the word for it? We're a very touchy-feely business. We want to feel the book, tactile, right? Tactile. And again, though, we love, you know, we offer digital levels because not everybody can afford all the shipping. To go to the other side, New Zealand. I have customers in New Zealand. They really appreciate the digital part, that they can just get it for $5 and get it, you know. And so something for everyone. But it's a learning curve. I'm learning. This is 13 and I'm still learning, you know.
Why did this appeal as a Kickstarter, as a crowdfunded project, rather than take it to a publisher and let them handle just getting the book made? Was it some? I mean, is it something about Kickstarter that makes it very much more of that personal project, that you have that sense of ownership to the whole thing?
Well, Jimmy has a crystal ball, and he saw the COVID coming.
Yes,
you could have warned us, man.
All have thorny things at the end of it surrounding it. It's a crystal ball. Now, you know, look, when there's so many companies out there, and my office is in a giant comic shop, Emerald City Comics, and there is a wall of 500 new books. And no matter what you do, you're competing with the books next to you. And plus, there's 9 Batman books and there's 18 X-Men books. And so people's money is going in certain places. And what the Kickstarter does is focus on just this book. It is it's something where if we came out with this with Image, it would do okay. But you know, it would be limited because they would say, well, you can't do this many covers, or you can't sign every book you're going to do. Like, there's a certain grassroots thing to the Kickstarter where you get signed stuff, where you get certificates, and it's bagged and packaged differently. And there's like TLC in every level. It's great that comics come out every week and there's a ton of them, but I do feel that it's like playing a kazoo in an orchestra. Going full blast. I'm just not. Books like this don't get heard because it's not a superhero book. It's a It's an action. It's a sexy action adventure bizarro comic that is a hard sell. You know?
Well, I mean, that's something we have kind of skipped over, the actual pitch for the book. I mean, we've seen some great artwork on screen, but Jimmy, Dave, if you could give us the elevator pitch for Popkill.
This is for Dave. Dave.
This is with Dave. Take it away,
well,
Dave.
I mean, basically, I came up with the concept many years ago, and it's kind of morphed over time. It actually started. I was thinking about it the other day. I forgot that it started. The idea of soda companies being at war with each other started with a more science fiction idea that I had, and then that one just kind of got put aside. And then I decided to bring it down to a more, you know, human level that people could actually relate to right now. And I just started thinking about the story, and then you know, that's not enough of a story, just two cola companies being at war with each other. So
we have that
the human element came in, and you know, having a scientist on the verge of creating a formula that would make soda fizzier 50% longer became the, you know, the basic spark of the story. You know, one side finds out about it and they activate one of their killers or, you know, henchmen on retainer to either seduce her and bring her over to their company or to kill her, so nobody has this formula. And then, you know, once he meets her, then he decides, well, maybe there's a third option, you know, and that's when everything really blows up. And then you've got everybody against everybody. So
tell them about the owners of the soda company, Dave.
Yeah, the owners are former Siamese twins that were connected like about right here, and they've been since removed, and now they hate each other. So they're constantly, it's like, you know, brother against brother, soda company versus soda company. Originally I had the idea that they were connected at the spine, and they were facing away from each other, and they would come to work in these two buildings that had a causeway connected, and this wall would come down and separate them, like it had a cutout of their back.
So they would each face out. And they would. I think I told you.
Yeah, they would scheme against each other to their people, and I had a really just messed up ending for them. But you know, once again, thinking in terms of could this be a movie? You know, concept. I thought, you know, it was like, well, maybe that's a little bit too far, you know, like,
well, this is pure comic book stuff, because I don't think anybody would make a movie out of this.
Yeah, so
I'm perfectly fine with that.
I don't know. I'm chuckling away quite nicely on this. I see a prequel going.
You know, there's it's funny because, you know, the trick to any book is you got to get people to care for the characters right away. Otherwise, they're not going to be along for the ride. And once you care for the characters, you can go as absurd as you want. I learned this on Harley Quinn. Once you care, then you can go crazy. And that's what the book does. It gets crazier as it goes. It sets up a basic premise. But I do love the brothers because they hate each other so much, because they know everything about each other, that the two soda companies have like two of the largest towers in the city, and they face each other. So the brothers are able to give each other the finger and do something from the tower away, and it makes for some fun. But at its heart, it's a romance. I was trying to think of what's the movie with Steve McQueen and Faye Dunaway about the stolen art.
Thomas Crown.
Oh, Thomas Crown. Yeah.
This is like a soda version of the Thomas Crown Affair with some bizarreness thrown in. That's what I want to say. That's my like elevator pitch right there.
And my humor is always based in absurdity. So, you know, from day one, it's always been about I really wanted to push soda specific violent humor. So we've got some sequences in there, you know, like at one point, our main guy makes a silencer out of a soda can. You know, just little things to let you know that, you know, this is a world about soda, which is absurd.
These are things Dave has done in real life. So,
yeah.
Can I ask you?
It's all about research, man.
Dave, what's that thing hanging all the way in the background on the back of your door? Like all the way in the back when it's on the black thing on the door?
Those are hats and a shopping bag. So I don't forget to,
When you leave the house?
Well, yeah. I mean, And then this is an amazing painting for a movie that I bought for next to nothing.
Nice.
And it's huge. I bought it, didn't look at the size of it, and all of a sudden this thing the size of a door shows up on my doorstep. And I was like, what the hell, man? Like, I've got nowhere to keep it. So
I have very little money. I've only got a few pieces of original art or any kind of. I mean, I've got the Scotty Young.
I see that. That's pretty awesome.
Nice.
And he's I met Scotty when they were signing it, and he's drawn a Thanos in the top corner. So at least that's my little pride of thing.
Yeah, I have an American flag where all the stripes are panels from comics featuring women.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
So all these stripes are all like Scarlet Witch and Ms. Marvel and Wonder Woman and Medusa, and my buddy Dave made it up. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
I shoved Harley's head on it because this is what I rob banks with. It's a mask. I wear it, and I rob a bank with it.
I mean, I know with some Kickstarters, what they usually do for stretch goals to kind of encourage people to do to get involved and to invest is kind of original artwork or art prints. I noticed that's kind of not kind of part of your the strategy. It's very much about the book. It's about getting the books out. I mean, can you see original prints being made for
well, we didn't want to put Dave to work too badly. I was gonna offer 100 Dave Johnson sketches, and then he talked me out of it. We will probably add a couple little things along the way if Dave feels like knocking out a sketch or two here. But right now we're focusing on selling the book. And we're talking to Juan about maybe buying some pages from him so we can offer them up, because I don't want him. He's got to make a living. Like, these guys, they're all paid. They got to get paid. So it would be me buying the page from the artist and then putting it towards the Kickstarter, because I don't think he needs that responsibility of that. But we tried to keep it to the books. Like, we're really focused on the books, and some of the stretch goals are actually Dave doing some sketches for the books, like a little art book in the back of the actual book. So if we hit those goals, we can add like 8 pages of Dave drawings and stuff like that. So that'll put Dave to work, and then maybe we'll offer them down the line. It's up to Dave. It's all about Dave.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were discussing the possibility of reward levels, but we're still talking about it. So
yeah, like I said, we're gonna do some down the line. I think my thing is for the first week or two, I want to actually sell the books, and we did offer mystery boxes, which do have some things in them, but those sold out really quick. I mean, we did 15 mystery boxes at $200 each, and they were gone the first day. Granted, it is in the mystery box, don't you?
Go on.
It's a mystery. No, no, it's a lot of weird things, like a Mandarin Mine badges from San Diego, and weird T-shirts, and old records, and CDs, and anything we get, like that people give us at cons, and bizarre stuff that we get. We put in there. Plus, we put a ton of comics and signed books. We make sure it's worth like $300 or $400. We try to double up what the value is. And then it should be doubled up at least. And then there's always a weird thing. There's always a sketch or a drawing or some Post-its with weird drawings on them from different people, or myself or Amanda or somebody else. So we try to keep because we also offer it on my paper film site. We do these smaller mystery boxes, and people keep buying them. Like, the same people keep buying 3 more, So it makes us put something different in every box every time, because we can't say, all right, I can't give them the same things. I got to find some weird thing to give them, and then I go through Amanda's drawer, Dave's underwear or something. All the things we put in it. Dave's underwear.
I'd keep an eye on that person that is buying all of the mystery boxes, because there is going to be somebody with a wall with just photos of you and lots of memorabilia, just kind of like in a very kind of David Fincher kind of style.
I've got a knife. I've got a knife and a gun. In case the gun runs out of bullets, I got a knife. Knife never runs out of bullets. No, it's a fake. This is a drawing gun. This is what we use this for drawing. So it's not, it's not real. I'm not Billy Tucci. I don't have an arsenal.
Well, we've got Billy on in a couple of weeks' time, so I'm looking forward to finding out exactly.
He's a hunter. Billy's a hunter. Yesterday he was hunting deer. He told me. So I'm like, okay, he's got real guns. I don't have anything real, sadly. I have a baseball bat that never runs out of bullets. Dave, you have a weapon in your house?
Actually, wait, hold on. I'll be right back.
I was actually thinking to myself, what have I got which I could use to defend myself with?
Yes,
and I've got nothing. I've got a Lego BB-8, and I don't think that's going to do too much damage.
I think you could break the glass on the Scotty Young thing and slice people's necks with it. I think you could do that. I think. All right, what does Dave have? Because Dave's in LA, so.
So when I was living in Florida, I went to a forging class, and I actually made this at a forge. It's not finished. It's rusty as shit, and it doesn't have an edge on it, and it's way heavy. It needs to be ground down, but.
Is that your Corona blade?
Your what?
Your Corona blade?
I call it the Mako because it looks like a Mako shark to me. So
it is really rusty, man.
Yeah, I mean, once again, it just, I mean, if I ever get to finish it when I get to a grinder, I'm going to grind all that off and then oil it and then put a handle on it. But right now, it's just all bare metal, and bare metal tends to rust.
I can still do some damage, man.
I hear you can sharpen it, but if you dig it into his skull and then you go back and forth.
Yeah.
Pretty well.
Like you said, I need to get about a pound off of it because right now it's just way too heavy. So,
but that involves right now. That involves leaving the house to do that, Jimmy.
Yeah,
we don't leave the house.
It's true.
I do go. I go in my backyard. Dave, you go to the supermarket, right? The drugstore.
Yeah.
Dave actually lives right near, not too far from the part of Hollywood where people dress up in costumes.
Yeah.
So if you see somebody in a full head to toe costume and it's tall, it might actually be Dave.
It's funny that street, it's the Avenue of Stars with right next to Man's Chinese, and it's usually every day it's just jam packed, and it's been amazing how ghost town this town is right now. Like I usually get annoyed at tourists stopping and looking down at a name on the ground like the people are actually buried there. And now I can walk wherever I want to walk, and there's nobody on the streets. So it's pretty wild. So
you can go out and put your hand in all the handprints.
Like without being disturbed.
Stop on it, and no less feces on the hand.
Yeah. That's the other thing. I see people laying on the ground. I'm like, some bum is pissed on that ground, right? Like I don't.
Clark Gable's footprint they pissed on.
I'm pretty sure that's how Corona started. All the tourists, like touching the ground where bums have pissed on, and then they take it home to China, and then it comes back here. So
the creative mind. That's our next Kickstarter.
Yeah.
The Origin of Corona by Dave Johnson.
I was about to say this podcast. I mean, we usually are very kind of about the interaction with the fans and talking about Comic Cons. This has gone into a slightly different realm, which I've no problem with. We're okay with it. Wherever it goes, it goes. And I like the comment as well from Solicitor Smeg as well with the knife, Dave. If the knife doesn't kill them, the tetanus will.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow. Yeah, man. That'll kill you.
Speaking of Smeg, man, I can't wait for Red Dwarf. I don't know when that's coming out.
It's been screened over here. I haven't yet to see it because the other half is the massive Red Dwarf fan, and she wants to take time and just sort of like watch it properly. So we haven't watched it yet. But yeah, it's apparently very, very good. I
don't know when it's going to be available over here, but I can't wait.
Is that politically correct to call it Red Dwarf? Isn't it Red Little People, or I don't know?
Well, dwarf. No, you're thinking of the M word, I guess. People tend to get upset. I don't think they're mad at dwarves or the terminology. So anyway,
Red Dwarf was there first. It's always been around. So
this camera's making me look like I'm red, like I'm purple red. I'm looking at you guys. Well, you're little. Dave looks completely flesh colored. That's what, and you know, but I look like red, man. It's so red.
Well, it's just your anger.
It is my anger. It's my blood pressure is going up. I'm so excited. I'm turning red.
Well, I think we can kind of say we can bring this to a little bit of a close by just once again pointing everyone in the right direction for this incredible Kickstarter. Like I say, it's going great guns at the moment, and it has beaten its initial target. But obviously, there's going to be more on the way when as it continues with 26 days to go. Mm-hmm. It's up there on the screen. Kickstarter.com/projects, creator-owned heroes, Palmiotti and Johnson's Pop Kill Issue 1 comic book. It's a hell of a thing, and yeah, I've already got my bid in. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing exactly how well this goes beyond the initial target. Guys,
we promise it's a fun read. So
there you go. That's your creator guarantee. It's a fun read.
I didn't promise. Dave promised.
Yeah, they promised. Jimmy didn't. Guys, thank you very much indeed for coming on and talking about the book. Looking forward to seeing what it comes out with. And guys, thank you very much indeed for coming on.
Thanks for having us. Take care.
Thanks, buddy.
Excellent stuff. Thank you. So there you go. Pop Kill 1, available, like I say, on Kickstarter right now. Do check it out. Check out all the tiers as well. One of the tiers I'm really excited about as well is the one where you can get for 6 issues and share those with friends. I think that's really cool to actually spread the word with your friends. Great book by the looks of things. The artwork is amazing. Very, very cool indeed. Excellent stuff. So that's Pop Kill. That is our crowdfunder spotlight. Let's do our other feature that we do on each and every show, which is our artist cup of tea. Basically, it's where I look through my social media feeds and look at some really great artwork that is being shared by an artist, maybe someone you don't know, maybe someone that you would like to get more introduced to, or maybe someone you are already aware about, maybe a bit of a name that you are already aware about. The one that we've chosen for today is Mark Lamming, who has just done some incredible sharing of work, which he's done for his commissions. He's shared some great work in progress stuff as well on his feed. Mostly on his Twitter, twitter.com/monkey_mark. And it's just been gorgeous stuff like this, the Boba Fett, which he did. Oh, sorry, the Mandalorian, which he did as a commission. But also just some really beautiful work. He did and shared this piece. Shared this on his Twitter feed in work in progress from original pencils all the way through to those art lines. And then he shared this colored piece, which his colorist did, the completed piece he put up. And it's just such this dynamic piece that he's put together. But then he's also started sharing other sketches and little art pieces as well. So we've also got things like this cracking death from the Sandman universe. But like I say, it is also some great work in progress. So he's really sharing the process of what he's doing with his artwork, including this great art piece from a book that he's currently undergoing at the moment. And yeah, we've also got one of my favorite characters as well, which is, of course, Sulana. He actually did this or shared this as a response. Someone actually went, "This is one of my favorite pieces that you've done from over the years." And he went, "You know what? This one's better." And he shared that as a response. I'm a fan of the character, as you know, so I thought I'd put that up. And there you go. Just to wrap this up, just to give you an idea of the variety of this kind of stuff that he's putting up onto his feed. Twitter.com/monkey_mark with a C. That's Mark Lamming, and he is our artist cup of tea for the day. Very, very impressive indeed. Lots of fun to follow him along. If you have an artist that you would like me to showcase on the show, please do drop me a line on the social medias, Englishman SDCC on the Twitters, on Facebook, wherever. Let me know, and we'll have a look at the artwork, and we'll do our best to showcase our artist of the episode. Excellent stuff indeed. Right, so that has been our show. I do try and keep these under an hour, but there was no way with our fantastic guests that we were going to be able to do that. And it was great that at such short notice that we were able to get Dave and Jimmy onto the show as well. But also, thank you very much indeed as well. It's been great to have Paul Jenkins come up onto the episode. Been great to have him take part. This Sunday, we've got IDW's Chris Ryle, who's going to be joining us. That's obviously going to be an interesting show because we've got ourselves such a difficult time at the moment when it comes to where we are as a comics fandom, the industry, and how companies like IDW are tackling getting stories out to people. So his perspective on the industry and what is going on right now, as well as all of his backstory when it comes to his fandom, because it goes all over the place. He really has had one of the most amazing careers in comics as IDW's Chris Ryle. And then next Wednesday, to wrap up the month, we have ourselves Billy Tukey. He's going to be joining us. He's going to be talking about his kickstarting efforts and also just the landscape of getting stories out to people outside of the mainstream avenues. We are going to be talking about She, that character which he has taken from strength to strength over the years. So it's going to be great to talk to him. So yeah, we've had ourselves some great guests over the course of the last couple of months, couple of weeks, and we're going to continue to do so for the next couple of issues. So Chris Ryle on Sunday, and then Billy Tukey is going to be joining us next Wednesday. That has been our show. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now, I know that I was going to be giving away 2 prints as well, because we have been showcasing the work of Rachel Smith, which has been a lot of fun to kind of get those out and share them. The Quarantine Comics, which she's been sharing on her social media feeds, on her Twitter and on her Facebook, as well as doing at least 2 or 3 of those Quarantine Comics per day. She's also been doing once a week these full page pieces, and she's giving us 2 prints of a couple of the prints that she's done over the last couple of weeks to give away. Now, I think we've run out of time, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this to Twitter. We're going to give you the opportunity to win. I'm going to do a bit of a competition, so do follow me on Englishman SDCC, and over the course between now and I think Sunday, I'm going to do a competition online where you can basically win these prints. If you'd like to follow Rachel, twitter.com/RACHAEL_. Follow and keep an eye on the hashtag Quarantine Comics. That's COMIX. Well worth checking out, because she's just been putting out these incredible strips, and which you can actually also buy on Etsy as well. So she's definitely been keeping herself occupied during this very trying time. She's put her heart and soul into each and every piece, and well worth checking out. So that is Rachel Smith. I'll be doing that competition on Twitter, so do follow me, Englishman SDCC, for more as I do a bit of a draw between now and Sunday's show. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thanks to our guests. Hope you've enjoyed the show, and hopefully you'll continue to like, subscribe, and support the Hangout. And of course, head to patreon.com/EnglishmanSDCC to donate and any kind of money that you can to help us keep doing what we do. Thanks to everyone who's commented. I'm sorry I didn't get around to everybody's comments, but hopefully we'll have more of that when we speak to Chris Ryle on Sunday. From myself to you, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you soon. Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. GMT for another Talkin Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.